You are no butcher, but a shepherd. Why should a god like you do nothing when vanity and malice do so much?
Hello, all, and welcome to my channel. My name is Justin Rose, and I'm the author of the fantasy series Tales of Rehavan. This channel will be a place to find bonus materials associated with me and my work, including trailers, musings, interviews, and panels. Currently, I'm working on the production of a full-cast audio drama called Fall of Ingway. The sound design is by Daniel Bell, and the score is by Michael Hyman. The following series of videos will be interviews with many of the cast and crew associated with the project. This first will be with Kat Carson. The music you currently hear, and which will close out the interview, is the song Mercy's Theme by Michael Hyman. Enjoy. Hey, I'm Justin Rose, author of the project, and you are
I am Kat Carson.
lovely to meet you. And your main role was the goddess Mercy. How long have you been acting for?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'm not classically trained in acting. I'm actually a musician and singer first, and all of my sort of formal training has been in singing. But I've been acting since I was a kid. I used to do drama school on the weekends and things like that, drama club. Always loved it. And with my music, it sort of became something that was very intertwined because when I moved to the Netherlands, which is where I live now, started working with various groups that incorporate acting into our music making, so storytelling, drama, all of this. I actually ended up founding a musical theatre company in the Netherlands as well, so music and acting combined in a really nice way. But the main sort of acting training I've had is through my music. I've been working with a collective called the Dutch Historical Acting Collective, and we work on historical acting techniques mainly, which is we take treatises from like the 18th, 19th century and read about how acting was sort of written about and the ideas around how you could act well from the past. There's a big
Really cool.
change that happens with the talkies. So silent acting, silent films, you see already a lot of the old style of techniques. But one of the things that's really cool about it, and that I think works really well for voice acting, is that there's lots of exercises for training the voice to act best through your voice.
Cool. And you mentioned from the Netherlands, and I think you're the only person in the production from a non-English speaking country. What brought you there?
So I actually went there to study originally because I'm from the UK. Obviously, you can hear in the accent. And I did my undergraduate study there in music, just a general music degree. And I really wanted to improve my singing, but I was also, because I'm a massive nerd, interested specifically in early music, which is historical music. And the Netherlands just happens to be one of the best places in Europe to study that. They have the biggest early music festival, I think, possibly in the world, but certainly in Europe, as in Utrecht. So I came to do my master's, and then I really liked living here. Everyone speaks English. I do now speak Dutch, but yeah, it's a really nice place to live. Really lovely quality of life. Really enjoy it.
Cool. I saw on your website and your resume and stuff that you speak several languages. Do you perform it? And I'm sure musically, I saw some videos of you singing in different languages and stuff. How difficult is it for you to perform in another language? Do you find that it splits your focus between like trying to think in that secondary learned language and it takes extra energy, or is there not very much difference?
It's a really good question. I'd say the preparation is what takes the longest because if you're gonna, and this is for true of singing and acting, I've done some little bits of acting in French. We did a little experiment with recreating a historical actress's performance, and she was French, so we were going through a French script. Um, I would say it's the preparation that takes longer because if it's not your native language, you don't have an implicit understanding of a lot of the context of the words. So it's about going through and really trying to understand the text, and that takes a lot longer in terms of preparation. But once you have that, I find the process is pretty similar in terms of memorization and just getting the meaning out.
That's interesting. I've always thought it would be very difficult because of what you mentioned with the context. Like in English, all our words have such a history behind them and they're so ingrained in us that we don't even oftentimes think of the difference between words who in the dictionary have almost identical meanings, but we would never swap them because we just have like this wealth of history of literature that's telling us exactly what they're like. And I always thought that would make acting in a foreign language, even if it's one that you're fluent in, very, very difficult just because you don't have that grounding.
I'll
But
say that what I also always try to do if I'm doing something in a different language is I will try and find someone who is a native speaker and go through it with them and try and get that context that way.
okay, yeah, that's neat. And so I saw in your interest, and even you've mentioned several of them here, like the member of that, I'm sorry, the Dutch, what was the historical acting
Historical
society?
acting collective.
Yeah, so that you play the dulcimer, you were a member of a French baroque musical group, different stuff. So there is a definite trend here of like old world, medieval interest and stuff. Where does all that come from? It's like there something about what you were raised around that exposed you to these older styles, or
So I think I've always really been interested in a lot of that sort of stuff from an aesthetic standpoint. Like I played Dungeons and Dragons when I was a little kid, like 7 years old, was playing D&D, and I always loved that kind of stuff. And we used to go to a lot of like medieval fairs and things when I was a kid, which I really, really enjoyed. But the town I come from has an early music festival as well that's quite active. So when I was doing my music degree in my hometown, I wanted to get involved in more performance opportunities. And my mother just literally, as I was there, joined the choir that is associated with this early music festival, which is an amateur choir, and said, "Oh, you should meet the leader of the festival. She's really nice and really approachable. You should meet her, and then you can maybe get some performance opportunities." So I sort of started that, and then I spoke to her, and she was really, really welcoming, and got me involved in so many things, so many different types of choirs that really dove into this like really old music, and there was just something about it that sparked this interest for me. Also because um my husband, who I've been with for a long time, also is really interested in things like postmodernism, and he was in a punk rock band at the time. But one of the things that you do when you're doing a degree in music is that you have to write about the history of music, and I was writing about the folk revivals in the UK because that was vaguely interesting to me because of this aesthetic sort of interest in the old world. And there's such a wealth of ideas surrounding this sort of intersection between the past, that's my cat, sorry, the past and the present, and how we exist now, but look at the past and how we can interact with sorry, I have two cats, it's chaos here. How we can interact with music, texts, all of this from the past whilst being very much in the present day. And that's something that ever since I started sort of my professional life has really interested me, because a lot of the discourse around historical music making is very much like trying to recreate what it was, but we can never truly recreate it because we exist today. And so that sort of that tension is what really interests me, and it's why I think I've really gone down this path, and why I've always had that sort of interest with this, yeah, push and pull between being a contemporary person living in today, but having this interest and looking back and seeing what was different about the past, you know?
yeah, and it's interesting the literal marriage in this case of the punk rock music and the interest in the old medieval stuff. When I was younger, one of my favorite musical groups was called Blackmore's Night, and it was formed by this guitarist from a famous rock group called, I think it was Deep Purple was the group he was a guitarist for. It's just heavy rock, and then his wife is interested in like Ren Fair and medieval style music, and so they combine them into this group that sings like these old worldy ballads and stuff, but with electrical guitar
Oh, I
interspersed
love
along
that.
with the lutes and all that. It's fun. Like it's always cool when the two worlds collide.
For sure. I used to have really weird days where like I'd be singing in an opera. And then that would be like my daytime would be rehearsals in costume and all of this like really old music. And then in the evening I would go to the grubbiest, grimiest bar and just, really rock out with my husband not playing on stage.
That's great. So what kind of music performance or acting performance do you enjoy the most? Like you mentioned, you've been in opera and these different forms. What do you like?
I really love the stuff I'm doing at the moment with my ensemble. That's the French Baroque ensemble you mentioned before. Because what we like to do is we take music that we find interesting, and then we always interweave it with poetry or texts and movement. And our not recorder, our flute player is trained in this sort of special style of movement that's part mime, part music, part dance. So she creates really beautiful sort of conceptual performances around movement. She does a lot of things in her sort of solo work outside of the group, combining her own poetry with her playing the flute and movement and staging. And she always brings a little bit of that, and then I bring a little bit of the historical acting techniques, and we create these sort of really exciting new performances that are, yeah, not really in a specific genre. And I find that really rewarding because it's everything I like to do. I get to do the cool music, I get to do the acting, I get to do all of it. Yeah.
Nice. And that's nymphs and monsters, right? In
Yes.
English, so in French. Is the
Yeah.
pronunciation much different in French? The spelling is a little different, but I don't know if it's pronounced differently.
Yeah, it's nymph et monstre in French,
Oh,
but we change the name depending on where we are. So in Dutch, it's Nymphen and Monsteren.
yeah. And so what defines it as Baroque? Like what is the line that makes it specifically a Baroque group?
So it's the time period. We don't only do Baroque music, but we this is our primary sort of music that we do is music from the French Baroque period, so sort of 17th, 18th century. Um, Lully, Couperin, Monteclair, these are the sort of composers we tackle, but it's basically about the music we choose and the eras we choose.
And so what made you pick the name?
Oh, that's a very good question. So we formed for a project at the Rijksmuseum, where they were asking for ensembles to take inspiration from their artworks and create programs around those artworks. And us having no chill, we took it a little bit further and we took some of the artworks that were on display in the Rijksmuseum and we projected them, the images, and sort of moved through them and incorporated movement and dance. But all of the pictures we took were of Greek mythology. So they were sort of Baroque time, they were from the Baroque time period, the paintings, but they were specifically, one of them was Europe, Europa, riding away on Zeus the bull. Another one was Pan and Syrinx. And we took cantatas that were based on those myths and incorporated those with the paintings and our movement and some declamation. Um, and we became the nymphs and the monsters in the paintings. And that's sort of where the name came
Awesome.
from.
That's really cool. Like I love hearing about this. Like it sounds like a very interesting experience you've had, like being able to blend these different things that you enjoy and that you love. And I'm not particularly well versed or educated on classical forms of music or on these things, but I have a deep well of admiration and love for them. And I am very much into mythology and such. And so kind of like blending those two together, that's really great. That's really nice. So moving on to the current project at hand, you play the role of Mercy, who is probably my favorite character in this production and one of my favorite characters in the books that are associated with this as well. She's very integral to kind of like my approach to the world of Rehavan. Like there's a lot of themes that kind of revolve around the conflicts between mercy and duty, mercy and justice, mercy and anger, mercy and vindication. These kind of like all play into a lot of my writing tropes. And so first off, thank you for bringing this very, very important role to life. There were a few people who gave solid reads for her, but I think there were two lines in your audition that really stood out to me. The one was where you were just giving a command to your horses, and you were like, "Down, my lovelies," and it was a very, very offhanded kind of command of, it suggested this kind of godly power that was just offhandedly given. And then the other one was where you were speaking to the god Ingway, the main character in the story, and telling him you're not a thing. And there was a deep level of like vulnerability there, but like voluntary vulnerability that wasn't lessening the power any. And that's exactly what I was going for with the character, and I really appreciated that approach. Was there anything that you saw in your performance or in the character that you're like, this is what I want to get across here? Was there any particular thing that you latched onto that you were like, this is how I'm approaching this?
Yeah, I think Mercy was a really interesting character for me because I think oftentimes it's rare to see like women in fantasy who are strong and vulnerable at the same time and actually have strength in their vulnerability. And what I really liked about her is that she's this incredibly strong, incredibly powerful goddess who sort of changes the world by being vulnerable and by being soft and gentle and warm and nurturing without losing any of her power. And I think that's such an interesting, yeah, character standpoint to have, is to have that strength in the vulnerability, because it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with nowadays. Is there's always this need to put on a front, and she just always read so open. It was really lovely to be able to play that.
Well, you definitely nailed what I was hoping people would take away from it. So that's really nice to hear. Like throughout less so in the in this production, but in the books there are references to like temples built to her and different places where she's worshipped. And there's a bit of iconography surrounding the different gods, and hers is a spear that's never been sharpened. And so it's kind of like intended as that symbol of power under control, of the potential for wrath and destruction
Yeah.
withheld and not administered. And so, yeah, I was very pleased with the approach you took to it, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your lines once they're all compiled with the other actors and seeing how they all jive together. Was there any scene that you enjoyed doing in the production? I know we're doing this interview a little while later after the files have been sent in and stuff, but looking back, was there any particular scene where you're like, I really enjoyed doing that delivery, or that was interesting or challenging?
Yeah, I found simultaneously challenging and rewarding the scenes with Ingwe, where it's sort of the reveal of that he's asked this I don't want to get into spoilers, but the reveal that he's been asking an awful lot of her again and again and again and not remembering it. Um, and what I'm really excited about is I really want to see how that sounds with the other character, with the other actor. And what would have been really nice, I think, if we'd had the chance, obviously, because of the way we're working, it wasn't possible, but I would have loved to play that scene with another person. I think it would have been really, really interesting.
I would have loved to be able to do that. And if I do another one of these productions, I think I'm going to try to arrange some sort of virtual thing, at least for some of the really vital scenes to be able to do that. But I didn't think it was fair to ask the actors to like, fix their schedules in such a way to make that work. Like I felt like it would have been just a
It would have
whole
been a
lot of
massive
extra
headache.
extra labor to ask of them. But if I do another one of these, I might try and like, maybe offer some incentive, like some extra pay or something to like be able to do at least a few of the really critical scenes together. But as is, the guy who's doing Ingwe is doing a number of different takes for all the lines, and he seems very competent. So I have high hopes for that all jiving together with my sound designer being able to take the best takes from each and
Yeah.
make them sound like they're going directly off each other. Um, the other role you applied for the production was Letitia. And did you have a preference going in which one you would have preferred to play between those two?
Yeah, definitely Mercy. I was very happy
Okay,
with the
awesome.
casting.
Yeah, so it was interesting with those two roles because I had you lined up. I was like, okay, I really like her take on Mercy. I'll probably use her. I don't think I'd contacted you yet, but I was like, I really like that take. And then I had somebody else who was like, I really like this person's take for Letitia. And then I had another actress come in who applied for both, and just her auditions for both were excellent. And I was like, okay, now I'm in a spot. I gotta like figure this out. I was like, I kept You for Mercy, and then I used the newer actress for Letitia, but it was some of the tougher casting calls I had to make for that because the piece has a limited number of female
Mm.
roles, and I had a lot of really good applicants for them, so it was much harder to pick between them for the female roles just because of there was a higher concentration of quality auditions for each part. Um, so moving away from discussing the current project, what's your favorite thing that you've performed or been a part of, whether it be acting or music, which is, you know, the larger part of your career? What's your favorite thing looking back on, you're like, I really loved this?
It's a really good question. Oh, so I think we recently, I say recently, I think it was 2 years ago now, maybe a year ago now.
Oh, so that's recent.
Um, the historical acting collective that I work with put on a festival with the help of the Utrecht Early Music Festival called Overacting, which was designed to sort of showcase all of the stuff that we've been working on over the last however many years it is, um, and to showcase that there are these other ways of acting and other ways that the audience can interact with actors and interact with theatre in general. And I had we did I think for the final night we did this historically inspired extravaganza was I think the name. And basically it was I think it was like 4 hours long. It was in the style of basically how historical theatre would have been run. So the audience could come in and out, they could get drink, they could get food, they could talk with each other, they could really relax. And then there was music happening at various points. And at other points, there were little scenes. So we had someone doing a German setting of no, yeah, I think it was German of Pygmalion, which was a melodrama, so music and text, spoken text with music interspersed and acting and everything. I think we had someone doing Proserpina, so the story of Persephone, and then we had some traditional Dutch actors coming in as well and doing a traditional Dutch piece. And my role in that was I played the spirit of theatre, which was basically the compere. So I would come on stage in between each of the acts and announce what they were going to do and make a few little jokes about it in English and in Dutch. Um, with historical gestures, wearing more and more ridiculous costumes. And then it ended up with us doing a skit based on the Klepperman, which is a Dutch traditional form of dance, I guess, where a man wearing giant clogs comes and tells all the children to go to bed. And so we did a little Betty Boop style skit with that, where my friend came on and wearing giant clogs and a horrendous wig and a giant beard tried to grab me and take me home because I was keeping everyone up way past their bedtime. But I think that was probably a personal highlight because it was just so much fun to get to come in and do all these little fun scenes and fun little bits between everything, and
Environment
to
sounds
have
lovely.
but also just to have the audience not have this strange expectation that we have that's a very sort of later development where everyone has to sit down and be quiet, but no, to have the audience be talking to each other and getting drinks, and I'd have to really try and get their attention, which is really exciting. And again, I think that comes from like I remember my husband telling me that the thing he loved about punk gigs is that no one really is there to pay attention to you. You're kind of in the background, and if you play well enough, people notice you. And it's just really nice to have these sort of these experiences where the audience isn't so primed on what they're going to expect, and they don't have all those expectations that you have to fill. Instead, you have to sort of grab them and do something a little bit more exciting with them.
Sounds like a really, really enjoyable experience, both for the actors and the audience. It sounds like kind of a relaxed interchange in a way between,
Yeah.
you know, so that's great. So do you have any projects coming up? Anything that you're currently working on that you'd like to toss out a quick plug for?
Yeah, so there's various things going on. I don't have dates on any of them, unfortunately. So I'm gonna suggest people follow my website and they can actually sign up to my mailing list if they're really interested.
Sure.
Um,
What's your website?
my website is just katcarson.com. And you can
Simple.
sign up to my mailing list from there. I'm also on Instagram, Kat Carson Music as well, and that stays fairly up to date. But I have a few projects coming up with Nymphs and Monsters. We're doing a project based around the Four Seasons by a French composer called Bois Mortier, and we're looking to do we're looking to do performances of that with four different singers, singing the cantatas spring, summer, autumn, and winter with full costumes as the seasons and reciting poetry and things about the seasons as well around that, which will be very exciting. And we're looking to put that on in slightly non traditional forms, so more audience interaction and stuff like that. I'm not sure what we're doing next with my musical theatre company, but I'm hoping that they will allow me to put on a musical I've written, which is about
Nice.
gay nuns in the 17th century. It's very silly. So I'm hoping they'll let me put that on. Yeah, other than that, just little bits and bobs, little gigs here and there. Various theatre things in the works, but can't necessarily mention them yet.
Fair enough. Which season are you?
Which I'm spring.
To wrap up, then I guess had a few random like little get to know you questions for kind of a little bit of fun for the audience. Who's your favorite actor?
Oh, I think it's got to be Patrick Stewart, who I've seen so many times at the Royal Shakespeare Company, who is just fantastic. Big fan of Star Trek growing up as well, and then seeing him do Shakespeare was absolutely top.
Amazing. I've never seen him live, but I've looked up a number of his performances, on YouTube or wherever, and like I enjoy him in his movie roles, but you can
It's
tell that
something,
stage is just where he's at. Like he's
yeah.
so good.
It's just seeing him
Um,
as Malvolio, who was so funny, and the voice was just incredible. He's got such a presence, especially if you're in the room as well. It's really something.
and what's your like favorite book or story?
Ooh, I love Good Omens, um, which is Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. I think that's probably my go-to favorite book. Yeah,
Nice. I have not read that one yet, but it is high on my to be read pile. I
well worth
love
it.
Neil Gaiman. I've never read any of Terry Pratchett, but I have a number of friends who are big fans of his, and I don't know why I haven't read Good Omens yet. It's been on my like list for a while.
Highly recommend. It's a gateway drug to Terry Pratchett.
There you go. And normally I've been asking people for a favorite movie, but I think I'd rather ask you, what's your favorite play?
That's a really tough one. Ooh, I think it might be. I am a Shakespeare fan. Um, I think it might be Twelfth Night because it's so much fun. Um, with all the cross dressing.
I do not remember the plot of Twelfth Night very well. I know I went through a big binge back in college, whereas like I read through all the Shakespeare plays, and I've always been a big fan of some of the tragedies, but I don't actually remember Twelfth Night very well.
Yeah, it's a comedy. So it's the Viola washes up on shore after shipwreck, separated from her twin brother, and believes him to be dead, so assumes his identity because it's the only way that she can get employment on the island that she's found herself stranded on. And she ends up falling in love with the Count, who she is manservant to, and then she discovers that her brother's and then the Count is in love with Olivia, who's a beautiful woman, who then falls in love with her as a boy. So she ends up in this weird love triangle, and then the ending is that it's all okay because her brother didn't drown at sea, so her brother can marry the lady because
Just sub
he's
in
a
for
man,
her.
just sub in for her. But it's
That's
very
funny.
silly and I like it.
Shakespeare adored his mistaken identities and comedies of
Yes.
errors. Like, yeah, it's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing the interview. It was lovely to meet you. Like, it's been very nice to do these, just if for no other reason than to put a personality and a face
Yeah,
to the performances I've been listening to. And if I do another one of these, like I have no script at the moment, but I do have a vague hope of doing another one of these next year at some point. And I will certainly reach out to you again.
that
I
would be
was
great.
very pleased with what you've done.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to. You were never hard. Really? I'm so proud. We gods have not been good to this land. Sometimes I fear what we will do. I wonder if we all ought to be swept away into your shadows for good and all. Leave the flesh folk to their little lives. We war, and we have taught them war. We lust, and we have taught them lust. In your duties, and comfort the souls you gather. You are no butcher, but a shepherd. Why should a god like you do nothing, when vanity and malice do so much?